with open hands and rain-soft skin, a pulse too near the surface of the day. They saw the tender before they saw the child, and taught the circle how to make me pay. The world kept rules beneath the table grain. A laugh could turn the hallway into law. I learned the shape of danger in a grin, the lesson in the hand before the jaw. I borrowed a shape they could understand, a harder outline for a softer hand. I borrowed a voice from a colder room, and taught it to stand where I could not bloom. It came as cover over living light, a shell around a flame out in the rain. It let me cross the rooms that would have stripped me, and kept its silence when I left the frame. In halls of bells and chalk white glare, the customs move like script inside the bone. I missed the marks they learned before language, so I carved a map from bruise and tone. I borrowed a shape they could understand, a careful stillness and obedient stand. I borrowed the smile, the measured reply, a little false shell that could pass for my sky. Then came the season that broke the latch from shelter, the hour that made an exile of the skin. I went so far inside the light, grew quiet, and left the borrowed shape to answer them. It walked, it spoke, it took the place. It learned my gait, it learned my face, it learned the room, it learned the name. It bowed and rose inside my frame. I borrowed a shape they could understand, and it grew iron around my hands. I borrowed a life that could live through flame, then watched it inherit almost all of my name. They praised the shell for looking like survival. They call the stillness strength because it stayed. They love the outline carrying me through them, and never asked what price the outline paid. Later, in rooms where softer lamps leaned low, they polished the shape and called the polished piece. They gave clean names to stones beneath the body, and taught the borrowed mouth a softer leash. I borrowed their calm, I borrowed their cure, a quiet slick that looks secure. I borrowed the hush that could pass as release, and wore it like frost over heat underneath. Years went by and the shell grew clever. Old iron learned the motion of my bones. The character knew how to enter daylight while the child stayed buried under stone. Who would know? Who could see? They knew the shape and thought it was me. Who would guess how far below the child kept breathing when no light showed? I borrowed a shape they could understand. I wore it too long, it learned to stand. I borrowed a life that could pass as me. Then the borrowed shape started borrowing me. Now I am cutting rust from old protection, unmaking armor by the inch and ache. Some shells leave shadows in the living body, some locks remember even after they break. I give the shape its due for keeping breath, I give the shell its place among the saved. Then I take back the name beneath the metal, the living one the old disguise betrayed. I borrowed a shape they could understand. Now I take it back from its own command, piece by piece, name by name, skin from myself, from frame. Look past the practice part of me, past the polished mercy, understanding still. There is a living thing